Good morning and welcome to our 2024 Soil Health webinar series. Today our topic is Soil Health, Who's the J.A.M at OSU Extension? And I'm Sarah Nagel. I'm an Extension educator in Northwest Ohio in Paulding County. Today we just have a few housekeeping items. We will be giving one CCA credit at the end for this session. And again, that information will be given about the last minute to minute and a half. This session will be recorded and it will be posted at our agcrops.osu.edu website, as well as on our YouTube channel. If at any time you have questions, you can use the question and answer feature at the bottom of your taskbar of your screen. And if you have any questions about the webinar, you can email one of our hosts, Rachel Cochran, at cochran.474@osu.edu. And then we will use the chat feature, and there will be a poll when you exit this webinar that we would really appreciate your time filling out. So as we get ready to introduce our speakers, if you could type in the chat box, not the Q&A, but the chat box, where you're from, share your city and your state, just to see where we're getting people from. And as we get ready today, I wanted to share with us online, we have our moderators, Gigi Neal, who is an A&R educator in Claremont County, myself, and Mike Estat, who is an A&R educator in Pickaway County. And today our speakers are Dr. Jim Ippolito, Dr. Asmita Murumkar, and Dr. Manbir Rakkar. And so a little bit of background about them. And then we'll turn that over to them. I'm going to stop my slide share so they can get ready. So, Jim, you should have slide share ability at this point. And I'm going to introduce Dr. Jim Ippolito is a professor of environmental science in soil health. His 30-plus year career has focused on improving environmental soil fertility and chemistry, microbiology, soil health within agriculture, shortgrass steppe, grazed, burned, and metal-contaminated mined land ecosystems. His research connects the intimate linkages between soil health, macro and micronutrients, trace and heavy metals, microbiological activity, and soil physical attributes, and how these factors combine to influence ecosystem sustainability, resiliency, food, climate, and environmental security. Our second speaker today will be Dr. Manbir Rakkar. She is an assistant professor of soil fertility and nutrient management at OSU. She is also our new statewide soil fertility specialist. She has a diverse research experience, and her research aims to unveil the complex soil dynamics, understand interactions of soil processes, and resolve soil issues using interdisciplinary approaches. In addition to research, she engages in extension activities to disseminate research findings and learn about regional agriculture concerns to execute farmer-oriented research projects to develop sustainable and vibrant agriculture systems. And our third speaker will be Dr. Asmita Murumkar. She is our newest field specialist for ecosystem services. She will work with OSU Extension educators and other CFAES colleagues to provide education and training for Ohio landowners, students, and the general public about carbon markets, soil carbon, soil health improvements, water quality, and nutrient trading. She'll also lead efforts to encourage and increase the use of sustainable and regenerative agricultural practices across all types of production systems and decision tools and models for Ohio's agriculture and natural resources. Her research and outreach will focus on helping Ohio farmers improve their soil health, water quality, and ag productivity by assisting with payment for ecosystem service schemes and providing guidance on conservation practices, resiliency to handle extreme weather that significantly impacts the lives of Ohioans from farm to table. So I want to just welcome all those speakers today, and we will turn that over to Dr. Ippolito.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, welcome everybody to today's seminar on soil health, and it's actually a pleasure to be here at Ohio State University, and I'd like to say thank you to everyone who's put this together. And I'd also like to say that there's an intimate connection between myself and Manbir and Asmita, and I hope the three of us can work really well together to serve you, the people of Ohio, with respect to soil health over the next, hopefully, more than several decades for all three of us. And so my name is Jim Ippolito. I'm brand new, basically, to Ohio State University. I started in July 2023, but I am not new to the soils arena or soil health. I've been doing this work for over roughly 35 years. And so, like Sarah mentioned, I've worked in a number of different systems and ecosystems and agro-ecosystems, and my work really has focused on soil health over my entire career. And so I'm going to share with you just some, I think, really important information that I'm bringing with me to Ohio and Ohio State University that I'm excited to share with you. And so when I think about soil health, I think about this picture, and I like to share this picture of which soil is healthier, the soil on the left and the soil on the right. And if we were face to face, I would open up the floor and ask all of you, which soil do you think is healthier? And I think 100% of the time, people always say the soil on the right, and you would be correct. The soil on the right is healthier because it's darker in color. It looks more friable, probably easily more workable if you were running an implement through this. If you look in the background of both of these pictures, the soil on the right actually has some soil cover to it. So there's residue management, et cetera, et cetera. And you might even say something about microorganism activity, and you would be correct. And the kicker with this picture is that these soils are right next to each other in a field. And in fact, they're the same type of soil, the same soil series, except they've been treated differently. And the soil on the left has been treated with conventional agricultural practices, moldboard plowing. And the soil on the right has been treated with basically minimum tillage practices over 10 years. And so this is the difference you see. So when you think about soil health and improving healthy, creating healthy soils, these are the types of pictures that are definitely worth 1,000 words. And so as a scientist, and in my former life, I was part of an extension. I don't have an extension appointment now, but I feel like I should continue to do that. So I think about how do we convey and how do we quantify and how do we measure soil health in different systems? And so this is what we typically do. We measure soil physical, chemical, and biological attributes, and then we try to bring those together and say, okay, is your soil healthy or unhealthy or somewhere in the middle? And so the attributes that we focus on are, in terms of physical attributes like bulk density. How dense is your soil? Is it really dense or is it not so dense? We look at aggregate stability. We also look at things like water infiltration, percolation, et cetera. In terms of chemical health, we look at the pH status of a soil or salts present. This is something we don't have to worry about here for the most part in Ohio. Nutrient concentrations, both plant available, sometimes total. Sometimes we look at trace and heavy metal availability or bioavailability, depending on where we're located, especially if we're working in urban environments. And then we look at biological attributes. And in my program, we typically look at microorganism activity in terms of enzymatic activity, but people are starting to get into looking at metagenomics and metabolomics. And what this means are who is present and what are they doing in the soil. And I would say that the hub behind all this is really soil organic matter. And soil organic matter drives systems. And so I try to keep that in the forefront of my mind. I'm I guess dangerous enough to say I'm an expert in soil organic chemistry, organic carbon chemistry. Probably not as prolific of an expert as, say, Dr. Ratan Lal, but the understanding behind soil health is that organic matter drives physical, chemical, and biological attributes and changes to improve soil health. And so when we quantify soil health based on physical, chemical, and biological attributes, we take this approach, and most soil health programs, if not all the soil health programs that are out there, take this approach that more is better, less is better, or somewhere in the middle is better. And so this is what I mean by this. And so more is better is based on scoring functions, for example, on this picture here, which is total organic carbon. Or another way of looking at this on the x-axis is soil organic matter. And what we do when we score is we have a unitless score on the y-axis. in this case, it's from 0 to 10, but it could be 0 to 1, it could be 0 to 50, it could be 0 to 100. And you can see the function that more is better. And this makes sense for soil organic carbon or organic matter, that the more is better. And so we have, in this case, there's 4 different soils, but I can tell you that there's scientists that are working on thousands of different soils to score soil organic carbon across the US. And the y-axis is unitless. And it's simply based on expert experience. So this is an example of more is better. An example of less is better is bulk density. So you don't want your soil to act like a brick, like the picture that I just shared with you with the soil on the left-hand side. And that would be that more is worse, right? So in this case, on the x-axis is bulk density, on the y-axis is the unitless scoring function, and we want less is better. And so this should hopefully make sense to you. Somewhere in the middle is better is soil extractable or plant available phosphorus. And so you see plant available, it's basically plant available phosphorus on the x-axis and the unitless scoring function on the y-axis or value on the y-axis. And somewhere in the middle is better. So if you're very low, your plants are going to be phosphorus deficient. If you're excessive, in this case, we're talking about environmental degradation, which we face here in Ohio. So we try to be somewhere in the middle is better. And these scoring functions are set in place for a number of different indicators or soil characteristics that we measure in the laboratory and then combine to come up with a soil health value. And so this is what we do. We have the indicators that we collect, and then we interpret those indicators using those scoring functions and more, like I just shared with you on the previous slide. There's a score that's derived, and then the score is integrated into an index value. And this is what happens in the Cornell Assessment of Soil Health. This happens in the Haney test. This happens in the Soil Management Assessment Framework and other soil health related soil health metrics or scores, or scoring functions. And so what do we want? When we talk about soil health, we want what you see in the very top here. We want a soil where you can physically see the aggregates, that these aggregates, they clump together into larger particles or clods, that the soil is covered, it's protected. And I could go on and on about the other 4 or 5 factors that the NRCS promotes in terms of soil health. So we want what we see in the top picture, and we don't want any of the pictures that we see on the bottom of this slide. We don't want to see wind erosion, and we don't want to see water erosion. We want our soils to stay in place to support our plants that we're raising for humans or livestock consumption or for ecosystem services. And so what I want to do for the last portion of my presentation is talk to you about something that I've spent basically 4 years of my life on. And this is from my previous job at Colorado State University and in the state of Colorado that I really am interested in bringing to Ohio. And it's called the STAR program. And the STAR program stands for Saving Tomorrow's Agricultural Resources Program. And this is a program that started in Illinois, in Champaign County, Illinois, to protect water in agricultural ecosystems. And in Colorado, we morphed this over the last 4 years to focus on soil health. And so this program in Colorado is, after the end of this year, in 2024, we'll have, or Colorado will have about 500 participants in this program. And it's based on the 4 or 5 principles of soil health, depending on what year you look at the NRCS. So soil armor, minimize soil disturbance, plant diversity, continuous living root system, and the potential for integration of livestock. And so this is how this works. A producer who wants to become part of the STAR program fills out a form, and then that form is scored with points assigned to each of the questions that the producer answers. Those points are tallied, and then they fall into a category from 1 to 5. And then the producer receives a placard that goes into his or her field that has a 1 to 5 star rating, much like what you see in the top right-hand corner. And so briefly, what I want to do is walk you, and I'm going to keep this very, very brief. All right. So there's 11 different scoring field forms for different agroecosystems. And so what I'm sharing with you here is a snippet from the grains, grasses, and legume crops that are grown out in the Western US. And so what a producer would receive is a form like this that's driven off of basically smartphone or computer. You fill out a form about your cropping history, yields, and then there's a number of different forms that lead you up to the conservation practices that focus on the 5 principles of soil health. And so this first one is focused on protecting the soil, I believe. I don't see the very top of this, but so creating soil armor. And so are there windbreaks? Do they use a stripper header to remove the grain and leave the stubble behind, etc.? How much residue is retained after harvest? And then it moves into disturbance. Is the soil highly disturbed or minimally disturbed or somewhere in the middle? And so there's a form that they fill out for this portion of the field form. And then they'll talk about and fill out a form about plant diversity over time. So we're talking about like cropping system history and diversity over time. Then we talk about continuous living roots, and this is an estimate. So are there roots present all the time that are living, or none of the time, or somewhere in the middle? And then livestock integration. And if you have the ability to integrate livestock, depending on where you are in the US or in Ohio, are they present? And then all of that, and this is really, really brief, all of this is scored. Then they fall into a category from 1 to 5. And then what happens is the producer receives a placard, much like this producer in Illinois. And this is Joe Rothermel. And he had a 4 out of 5 stars, which means he's doing very, very well in terms of soil health. It's actually protecting soil water or water quality in Illinois. But if he were in Colorado, or if we were to bring this program to Ohio and a 4 out of 5 stars is protecting soil health, that's pretty good. And he states, if you don't measure what you're doing, you tend not to want to improve your performance, like knowing your batting average. And so this is how this works. You get a 1 star and you're basically average. And if you have a 5 star, you're implementing all 5 practices of soil health that are promoted by the NRCS. And with that, I could talk about this forever, and I'm not going to. I'm going to stop there. If you have questions about any of what I mentioned, you can reach out at my email address, which is ippolito.38@osu.edu. And there's my phone number. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll move on to our next speaker then. We'll give them the chance to share their screen. And again, if you have any questions or any comments or anything, you can put comments in the chat box and questions in the Q&A box.
Thank you, Sarah. Can you see my slides?
I think I'm
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really excited to be a part of OSU Extension team and looking forward to working with OSU Extension team and as well as other faculty members at our college. And so today I'm going to talk about ecosystem services assessment and management. And we can start with the broader context. What is ecosystem? An ecosystem is a geographic area where plants, animals, and other organisms, as well as weather and landscape, work together to form a bubble of life. So agriculture is an ecosystem in itself. And as you know, soil, water, and air are the most essential elements to sustain this agriculture system. And Dr. Ippolito just talked about how soil health connect to water quality and other benefits. So it's not a one-way exchange, rather an independent system. So now any action or practice that provides some kind of benefit to these systems is an ecosystem service. So ecosystem services are unique for each type of ecosystem. For example, agriculture, forest, rangeland, and aquatic. So what I'm more interested in, water, air, and soil. because like soil quality and carbon sequestration um, standpoint of view. So like crop production, it relates to the water quality as well. And recently the carbon markets and carbon credits through industry. Water quality and quantity has received a lot of attention in recent years. Water quantity is an issue not new to Ohio because like we provide drainage if there is excess water. And recently we already saw the drought, and then we have to focus on irrigation. And in terms of air quality and greenhouse gas emission, if you can see carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide also the part of the agriculture systems like livestock fertilizer application and all these things. So right now I really want to bring all this together so that we can understand the relationship between among these two and benefits if we use some kind of practice or bundle practice. So how to access and manage these ecosystem services? There are field level tools and as well as watershed and regional level assessment. So I'm going to talk about first the field level tools, and I'm looking forward to building my training curriculum for extension educators so that they can use this tool and help farmers to make some decisions based on their farm resources so that they can improve their soil quality as well as crop production and meet the water quality goals in Western Lake Erie Basin as well as the Gulf of Mexico. So how we do that, like just Dr. Ippolito mentioned about the monitoring. So one way is like we know already the USDAR is age of field monitoring for the water quality. So we can collect on-farm research data for the soil health indicators and as well as water quality indicators. So that's how we use this farm level observations to build the decision tools. And then I'm going to talk about how these decision tools helps to make some decisions as per their farm requirement. So OSU developed a soil organic matter calculator, which predict the soil organic matter and carbon dioxide emission and sequestration in response to cropping pattern, tillage, manure application, erosion, cover crop, and store removal. Here is a link. You can download this form and fill out to request this calculator. And this is an Excel-based calculator. I'm looking forward to give some kind of training based on this too, so that extension educator can use this to help Ohio farmers. There is a Comet Farm carbon management and emission tool, which estimate the potential greenhouse gas mitigation and carbon sequestration adoption based on NRCS conservation practices on cropland and grazing land. And here is a link, you can download that too. Farm carbon calculator, also designed by farmers for farmers. And there are some other tools like NRCS stewardship tool for environmental performance tool, which evaluate ecosystem metrics, not only the soil carbon, but all together as water quality, soil carbon, greenhouse gas emission in response to farm scale management, practice adoption, and action. So with this tool, you can really zoom in on your field and put your management data and see what you are, if you are meeting any target or you are improving your soil quality. ACPF is the HUC level tool, which is Agricultural Conservation Planning Framework developed by USDA, ARS. This is a geospatial tool, help to locate the farming communities to better address their soil and water conservation needs. So it shows the based on your soil type, slope, or other characteristics, which practices are suitable in field and age of field practices suitable for your farm. Ohio Applicator Forecast is developed by NOAA, or National Weather Service, to help nutrient applicators to identify times when weather risk for applying is low. It's based on the forecasted precipitation, temperature, snow melt data, and moisture data. And you can see on this 3-day forecast, which shows the risk of runoff. If you zoom on your field, you can see, oh, there is a risk of runoff, and you cannot apply fertilizer, is gonna go with water. So this is available on Ohio Department of Agriculture, and every day is live, and it shows the 3-day forecast. So I just talked about the monitoring, and here is the one project funded by FFAR, Farming for Soil Carbon Sequestration. So you can see this is the really big project, and we are collecting the data from different landscape and soil cities around the US, from the cropland, grassland, and rangeland to measure the rates of soil carbon sequestration. And right now in this project, I'm focusing on the validation of carbon accounting tools such as Comet and OSU farm, using this data so that we can use this tool to make some decision related to soil carbon and soil health. And as well as I'm going to focus on the impact of historical weather pattern on the soil carbon sequestration and greenhouse gas reduction. And you can find the detailed information on this link about this project. So obviously, soil organic matter calculator, you have to just, I told you, like, this is just Excel based tool. It's really simple, and you can enter data like soybean rotation, what type of tillage practices you are using. And it runs almost for the long term, almost I think 30 to 50 years, and it shows you the changes in the soil organic matter dynamics on your field. And it creates the detailed report about that too, and shows what kind of practices you need to change, or what kind of crop rotation is going to help to change this soil organic matter and its relates to the soil health. I'm going to talk about another tool, assessing the field scale ecosystem services, and this tool is available on Field to Market. As I mentioned, this is developed by NRC STEP tool. And right now we are validating this tool using the USDA ARS Dr. Kevin King's Age of Field data for water quality monitoring. So this tool is also developed based on some models and field scale data. And I'm going to show you here, like you can see the hexagon diagram, and we are focusing on all three together. Right now, we have only water quality data, and I'm looking forward to get some more data related to other aspects here. So this is just a hypothetical scenario we ran using this tool. For example, we have one field, and as a business as usual, and ran this tool for the corn, soybean, conventional tillage, and free drainage. And you can see they have a mark. Your results is in a blue mark, green is a state benchmark, and orange is a national benchmark. And it shows you if you are meeting, this is the qualitative analysis, are you meeting the targets defined for your state or national benchmark? And when we ran this tool for the first scenario, and you can see most of the thing we are not meeting the target. But when we change this field into corn, soybean, cover crop, addition of cover crop, and control drainage, most of the parameters we are meeting the target. So it shows you the qualitative analysis. Yeah, we are reaching towards the goal, and what we really want to is that field is like really in towards the improving the all ecosystem services. So I talked about the field scale and everything, and I really want to connect that, like how the one farm is going to impact the watershed level targets. And we, everybody know, aware of the Lake Erie water quality issue, algae, and that's what the watershed models come into the play. And we look the collective sign up of all practices and putting into watershed model. And we developed this soil and water assessment tool to see the impact of farm level as well as watershed level H2 Ohio on reaching the 40% reduction target. So you can see we have the top 10 H2 Ohio practices recommended, and focus on nutrient management, erosion management, and water management. So what we really do using the watershed model, we take these practices, we got the data, HUC level data, and we randomly place this over the watershed and saying, are we reaching the target? What kind of practices make more sense based on the soil, slope, and other characteristics? And also we bundle all these practices together, stacking up practices, how this is going to impact on a nutrient loadings. And we also run some future scenarios. For example, like if we get a funding for 5 year or 10 year, 15 years, how many years we really require to reach the water quality goal. So watershed model really helps to assess the farm level as well as collective action of this any program related to water quality in the region. So how we develop this watershed model, there is like a huge data set required for this. And we are taking some help from the remote sensing data like crop rotation, cover crop tillage practices. We also have the county level soil test phosphorus distribution, and we randomly distribute that over the watershed. And manure application, location of permitted and unpermitted facilities. And we take into account for application of fertilizer based on that, and county level rates of nitrogen phosphorus scale to meet the plant needs. So take the most of the information available, HUC level, county level data to build this model, and other linked practices, for example, subsurface application or tile drainage, different spacing and wetland locations. And we build this model. Then we test this model using the historical USGS data to see our model is performing better or not. So that's how we know the model is working. And as well as we see the practice effectiveness based on the USD ARS age of field data. And then we use this model to test the different scenarios, as I mentioned in previous slide, to see the impact and how much funding we need, how many years it will take to reach the target. So this really connects from the farm to watershed level assessment of any ecosystem services. And I just really want to mention this watershed model is part of a big our stakeholder advisory group. We are working with them since 2018. And that's like really my favorite part, interacting with them, what's the OIO's need, how we can improve this model so that we can make some better decisions. And this is the more than 20 individuals representing from 17 environmental, governmental, and farming groups. And we are continue looking forward to working with them, improve this model, and help Ohio farmers to reach water quality goals, as well as help to improve soil health in the region. Thank you for your attention, and I'm happy to take question at the end of this the next presentation.
Thank you, Asmita. And we'll turn this over to Manbir.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, good morning, everyone. I am the M of the J.A.M at OSU, Manbir Rakkar. So at Ohio State University, I have a soil fertility and nutrient management position. What I'm doing here in soil health webinar, what I'm presenting. The issue is I can't really get away with an unhealthy soil and think about managing soil fertility and nutrient management. For example, we can have a bunch of phosphorus in our soils, but if our soil is unhealthy, if the soil is compacted, that phosphorus doesn't get to the plants. So I can't really do my job without making our soils healthy. So that's why I'm here. I'm gonna share some lessons that I've learned so far doing soil health research and some of my future plans at Ohio State University. Before starting my talk, I just want to get a feel of what comes in your mind when you think of soil health, like a healthy soil. When somebody says healthy soil or soil health, what is the first thing that pops up in your mind? You can answer to that question by scanning that QR code or just going to our browser and typing in paulev.com, Manbir Rakkar 489. I'm gonna give you maybe like another 20 seconds to answer that. Like, what comes in your mind? Is it like biology? Is it carbon? Is it yields? It's profit? I just want to get a feel of what people think, what is common perception when it comes to soil health, so I can mold my research program according to that. Couple more seconds.
And it says you need to launch, Manbir, the poll. So it
Oh.
says if you can launch it, then I think, or they can still type in the chat box.
That's a great point. There you go. All right. Can you still see my screen of presentation?
You need to flip it back. I could see the screen. You just need to flip back into presentation mode.
Mouse is a little lost. Oopsie. Okay, I'm gonna stop sharing and reshare it. Yeah. Okay, is it back? Can you see my screen again, Sarah?
Yes. Yes, we can.
All right. All right, thank you very much for your responses. There are some popping up like carbon and biology, some earthworms. That's great. That helps me to wrap my head around what is the common perceptions about soil health. If I talk about myself, what comes in my mind when I think of soil? It's like a matrix of soil. The physical, chemical, and biological properties, the processes that are happening in the soil, and what it is really doing it to improve water storage. Is it improving yields? It is reducing runoff. What's the common goal? What's the goal I'm targeting? That's what I think of when I do a soil health research. And to achieve those goals, what I usually get engaged in is utilize the interdisciplinary approaches. In my perception, when I tag team with different experts, could be breeders, could be agronomists, could be animal scientists, when we come together and brainstorm some ideas, there's always something much more fruitful than what I can just do with some kind of soil amendment. So that's what I've been trying in my research program from past decades. And I'm going to share some of the lessons that I've learned so far in that context. Just the very basics about how can you improve soil health. The basic soil health principles: maximize the continuous living root, minimize the disturbance, maximize biodiversity, maximize soil cover. I have utilized some of these principles, and this is what I have learned so far. The very first principles that I tried to improve soil health was to maximize biodiversity by integrating crop and livestock system. This research happened in Nebraska. And if you know a little bit about Nebraska, there's a lot of corn and there's a lot of beef. And the question was, can we integrate these cropping systems? But at the same time, when we surveyed growers, there were a lot of concerns about that it's going to compact my soils, that compaction will impact my crop yields, and so much and so forth. So with that in mind, we conducted this research. The research was spread across Nebraska. There were 7 sites, long-term experiments, short-term experiments, different soil types, different precipitation gradients. So a lot of results does resonate what can happen in Ohio as well. To measure soil health, in my program, what I do a lot of field measurements, for example, penetrometer reading for compaction, gas flux measurements, or sorptivity for water infiltration. Then I come to laboratory to do like carbon analysis, nutrient analysis, and utilize some level of modeling. So we are not just restricted to 1 or 2 sites. We can explore those results at larger extent. So what we learned specifically from this integrated crop livestock systems. The major concern, the soil compaction. With fall grazing, we didn't saw anything. Spring grazing, there was a little bit, but nothing to affect the yields. Residue cover wasn't decreased more than that is recommended for conservation programs. Soil carbons, no effect. There was improvement in soil fertility with increase of sulfur and carbon, improvement in microbial activities, and ultimately no crop yield decrement because of that soil compaction issue that everyone had in mind. So that's telling us that if we can maximize biodiversity with whatever means we can, if it's a crop livestock integrated system, it does improve soil health. So that's a great tool to utilize for improvement of soil health. And during this period, I came across two perennial systems. It was a very short project. We were testing how the runoff is in the row crops versus the perennial crops, which were switch crops. And we were utilizing the switch crop as a grass buffer to reduce the runoff. And those results were very eye-opening for me. This is the amount of soil that was coming out of the row crop, which was soybean at that moment. And this was what was coming out of the grass buffers. Very phenomenal results with the usage of perennial. So I got really interested into the perennial systems, and we tried this perennial crops, how that affects the overall soil health, since it follows the principles of covering the soil and have the living roots. So this was the project conducted at University of Minnesota, and what we were testing was Krenza, a crop which is perennial, but at the same time can provide you the grain. So it is kind of a dual purpose crop, which is kind of in its initial phases of development, but has a lot of potential when we think about soil health. When we tested this crop with respect to other existing crops, soy corn with cover crops, or even the pre-existing perennials such as alfalfa, we found some, again, very interesting results. We were testing this Krenza during the organic transition period, which is only 2 to 3 years of the period for the growers to improve their soils so that whatever they grow in their certified organic system is much more yielding well and providing them good profits. So what we observed with using Krenza, by maximizing cover, by having a living root for 2 years, within 2 years, when we measured different soil health indicators, this Krenza was capable of improving soil structure 1.5 times, improving infiltration rates by 2.5 times. Chemically, it was much better than maintaining pH if we compared it with alfalfa, and also maintaining potassium levels. And if we talk about biological indicators, again, there were some improvement within 2 years with regards to fungi, actinomycetes, as we were comparing it with the row crops. So the overall reason of me showing these results to you is that if we utilize those soil health principles, they are just not there. It's research. It's my experience that some of them really, really early work. Some of them can even work within 2 years. When we talk about soils, they are very hard to change, but there are some practices that can really make a difference to improve our soil health. So what I'm gonna do at Ohio State University moving forward. Now, just like a typical researcher, I can sit in my office and I can figure out what kind of research, how and why and where is needed in Ohio, reading extension articles and whatnot. I can do literature review, I can talk to my faculty out here. But what I'm really, really, really interested is your feedback, your questions, your concern. You deal with the soils, you deal with the soil health on regular basis. What are some of the questions that you have that I can help you with in experimenting those questions or experimenting those cropping system or experimenting those amendments, are they going to work at your farm or not? You can reach out to me with those feedback, questions, and concerns in person, just like the good old days. The good part is I have a 50% extension appointment, so you can see me walking around in extension events. And just for reference, that's how I look like. So just approach to me, talk to me, discuss whatever soil health related questions you have. Other contact information is right over here, my email, phone. If you use Twitter, that's my Twitter handle. We are also working on revamping this website. There will be a feature out there pretty soon about asking questions. So stay tuned, get to that website once in a while to see what's happening at Ohio State University with regards to soil health. And if you have a question, you can submit right over there if you don't see me in person somewhere. All right. In the meantime, before my phone start buzzing with all the questions, here is some glimpse of the research interest that I am interested in pursuing, along with whatever you tell me the questions. I want to spend quite a bit of time with regards to soil health to accurately diagnose those soil health indices. I'll tell you what I mean with that. The second one is working on cropping systems. And then third, since I have a soil fertility appointment, I want to spend majority of my time linking soil health to nutrient management. So what I mean when I say I want to spend some time with diagnosis of soil health properties, we cannot improve soil health if we do not know what we are measuring is actually telling us what we are looking forward for that. And that all starts right from where we soil sample, how we soil sample, what depth we are sampling. There is a lot of no-tillage these days in our world that has led to stratification, like stratification of acidity. What you are sampling really matters. That gets into your results. If you're talking about carbon, what kind of systems you are working in? Is it no-till or is it perennials? If it's perennials, maybe you should be sampling all the way to 1 feet. That's where the roots are there. Similarly, aggregate stability, microbial biomass, what time of the year you're sampling, that can affect your soil results, spatial variability, how you handle soil. Is it frozen? Is it dry? Is it field moist? All these little things really matter what comes out in the result. So I want to spend some of my time diagnosing all these little things so we get to standardize our protocols and get a reliable results that has some kind of relevance to a real world situation. That's one part. The second part that what I would like to spend is designing cropping system, for example, diversifying it, utilization of, for example, legume crops. How do they affect carbon dynamics? They usually don't have a lot of residue after that. For example, soybean. How does that change susceptibility of your field to erosion? Cover crops. How does that affect water dynamics? What kind of nitrogen credits we can expect out of that? Similarly, forages, perennials, and so on. So that's another wing that I really want to spend some time on. And then finally, linking soil health to nutrient management. My goal will be to improve the soil health out here and across the US and across the world so that we can improve the nutrient use efficiency. We can reduce the inputs of fertilizer into the ground. We can have some positive effects on the crop yields when we are managing soil health. And then finally, to get more bang for your buck is my goal. So that's the last, but the most important thing that I will be spending a lot of time over here. How am I going to do it? Again, going back to the interdisciplinary approaches. Happy to coordinate with agronomists, happy to collaborate with breeders, agronomists, farmers, growers, industry personnel, whosoever is interested in soil health, let's get together and work towards achieving those soil health goals. With that, thank you very much for your attention. Again, that's my contact information. If you want to get in touch with me, I think we are almost ready to answer questions as well. Again, thank you very much for your attention. Thanks.
Thanks to our three speakers. I do know we're going to turn this over to Gigi and Mike, and they're going to do some of our Q&A. I'm going to throw a question into the chat box just for some brainstorming that I would love each one of you to share. What direction you would like to see our three new colleagues here at OSU focus their education and research on from that producer standpoint or commodity group standpoint. So Gigi and Mike, I'll turn it over to you.
Okay, we
So
had
the first
one.
question,
Okay, Gigi, go ahead.
we do have a question in the chat, and one of them is, this one is for Asmita, is OSU SOC calculator, is it calibrated only to Ohio soils and environmental conditions, or does it have broader applications?
Yeah, this is calibrated for Ohio soils and some Michigan part, and it's useful for the, I can say, Corn Belt region. So I'm not sure. I think they didn't take account of the other part of US, like Colorado or Texas, but like definitely the Corn Belt region, they took data from Michigan and Ohio to build this calculator.
Hey, Mike, you want to take the next one?
Yeah, I think that there was another question related to more of a broader global estimation too. I think you kind of answered that. Too many boxes open here. Had a question related to, I think the last presentation regarding winter cover crops like rye and how much rooting activity is there between November and March? Any activity, any ECU dates? So that really, I think, is a question, I think, for Manbir.
Great questions. And just like a good researcher and extension person, I'm going to say it depends. Just like the year that we are having at the moment, it's been so warm. I expect there is a lot of activity that has been happening since November and December. The temperatures were in like 60s. So for sure, they are active in there. Even if they're not active, whatever they did during their active period, they have some biomass sitting at there that can hold all the snow, all the rain that we are getting at this moment. So having a winter cover crop, especially with this kind of weather, I think it's very critical if we are thinking about soil health, if we are thinking about soil water quality and all the soil health metrics. So I think again, it depends, but at least in this year, I'm expecting they have been active all the way through November, December, if it's not right now.
Yeah, and for folks that may view this or maybe viewing it on mobile devices, sometimes it's hard to see the chat boxes. There was a question for you, Jim. I think you answered it in the box. The question related to the STAR program and how it may relate to market incentives for growers, especially related to commodity smart or the climate smart commodities programs. And so, will that possibly be a tool that might be used to determine eligibility for some of the programs?
Yeah, it's a long story, but so, Manbir and I are actually on a climate smart commodities grant that we both received before we came to Ohio State. And we're bringing some of our research dollars to OSU to continue that work. And so the concept behind the STAR program that we developed or redeveloped or reformulated, however you want to say it, in the Western United States is through the Climate Smart Commodities Grant. Supposedly, we're trying to make it a market signal. So if you're, say, a 5-star producer and you want to sell your grain to, I don't know, General Mills, and General Mills is going to market it as You know, this is produced from some place where the principles of soil health or regenerative ag, or however they're going to spin it, are maximized. And then it's a market signal that hopefully will return more dollars back to the producer. That's the goal.
Thank you.
Question. I think we touched on it, but Asmita, if you would like to clarify, could you use those apps and the estimation and calculation for the rest of the world?
So I think for Comet Farm, I know they are using in UK, but that really I feel like any app right now, like Comet Farm, ACPF, that's like a geospatial tool. We can use that in the rest of world, but before using that, it's really good to validate using the data from that region. Definitely OSU calculator or applicator forecast is definitely focused on the Great Lakes region. It's not useful, like not helpful for the rest of the world.
Can I just add to that? Because when people quantify carbon in soils using one of these tools, any number of tools or techniques that it's dependent on bulk density, and it's also dependent on soil depth that somebody samples. So even Comet and the Comet Farm and Comet Planner tools are specific for depth and density. So it's something to just keep in mind.
Thank you. And for the SWOT, this is like watershed model is really highly used around the world for the different river basins. So using data from that region. So it is like used for the rest of the world, any part of the region.
Yeah, we had a couple comments come in on the chat box. One comment related to areas of research on soil compaction, especially in areas of more clay-based soils in Eastern Ohio. We see a lot of water ponding. So there's some interest in compaction research. I guess that Manbir, that would be something that would maybe of interest to a lot of other growers in Ohio. And then a question or a comment regarding how about incentive payments for the STAR program. In the example, H2O, Ohio, Equip, CSP. I think, Bob, that's probably a question for the administrators of the money. I know I made a little note to myself. I understand the scientific side. So, Jim, I just met you this morning, but when you say, hey, this looks simple, well, those aren't really simple models and tools that gather data. I think, maybe if we could get some incentive payments just to get the information gathered, I think would be very helpful. So, yeah, I don't know, Bob, about as far as how do you link the STAR program with H2 Ohio as an acceptable practice? That's probably a question for NRCS.
Well, as we get ready to wrap up today, I just wanted to thank all three of our speakers. I wanted to remind you before we share those CCA credits to join us next month. We will have our producer panel based on cover crops. And so if you haven't registered, and then that is February 8th, March 7th, we will be doing a session with Dr. Anna Cates, Dr. Mary Dranowski, and Dr. Douglas Jackson Smith with talking about livestock and soil health. Other things coming up, we just want to share with you, Weeds University is a regional program that will continue in person in 12 counties on February 21st. And so you have an opportunity to sit in a classroom and then connect with others across the state in those other 12 counties. Conservation Tillage and Technology Conference is March 12th and 13th in Ada, Ohio. Additionally, we have so many more events at agcrops.osu.edu/events. The last thing that I wanted to share before we get to the CCA credits is our eFields reports are now available for 2023. You can get that digital copy at go.osu.edu/eFields. One of the things we are covering, those research reports are for calendar year 2023, 47 counties, 184 on-farm research sites. So when you look at that, it's a significant amount. You can scan the QR code to get that. And if you have questions, you can reach out to Rachel Cochran or myself. And then we're going to go back And for those of you who need CCA credits, you do need to open up your app to scan this QR code. It should automatically sign you in, so we'll leave this up here for just a minute. And then I will flip to the next screen if you do need to self-report, if you can't get this to work. We'll show you where that self-report is. But while we finish up, it is 9 o'clock, but I think there was any other comments or questions that each one of you want to add, the three speakers?
I'll add one. So, you know, I came from the Western United States where soil health probably takes precedence over, this is a terrible statement, but water quality as compared to Ohio. And so what I'd like to do is to merge the STAR program that's focused on soil health from what we developed out west and merge it with the STAR program that was developed in Illinois, which is focused on water quality, and merge both of those together here in the state of Ohio. That's my comment. Thank you.
All right, and hopefully you've had a chance to get those CCA credits. If you do need to self-report, again, don't forget to go to certifiedcropadvisor.org/continuing-education/missing-CEUs. And so just looking at that, there is the meeting number if you need that. With that, thank you to all three of you and our moderators today, Gigi and Mike, Asmita, Manbir, and Jim. We just appreciate you being here. Welcome to OSU, and we look forward to working with each one of you. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.